It started with an alien device did what it did and stuck itself upon his wrist with secrets that it hid. Now he's got superpowers, he's no ordinary kid, he's Ben 10. Ben 10. What's up, y'all? I am back from my hiatus. Here to talk about a show that I've been dying to watch for the longest. From a franchise that's very near and dear to my heart, Ben 10 Alien Force. Yep, I've never seen Alien Force nor Ultimate Alien. I've always planned to watch, but a few months ago I started watching a bunch of Ben 10 content, getting infatuated with the series once more. In this video, I'm going to share my thoughts on the hit sequel series that is Ben 10 Alien Force. Now, without further ado, let's get into the review. Before I share my thoughts, you guys know I gotta give y'all the rundown or the background for why I got interested in a show, movie, franchise, or even music. So with Ben 10, my first introduction to the franchise was the reboot, being a 2010s kid. I knew about the franchise loosely but never watched any of the original shows. I actually liked the reboot a good bit, but those feelings sort of regressed. But one day, going to my uncle's house is when I saw Ben 10 Omniverse for the first time. The art style was fire. Ben used so many aliens. Rook was such a cool side character, and the show had the perfect action/comedy vibe I loved. After going back home from my visit, I binged all 80 episodes of Omniverse and fell in love with the Ben 10 world. Getting into the fandom and watching different channels like Diamond Bolt and the Ink Tank. At some point, I would go to watch the original cartoon, which I loved, and fully watched the entire show last year. Ever since that point, I wanted to watch UAF, but never got around to it. But since my recent resurgence of Ben 10 content I have been shoveling down, I grew tired of waiting and finally started. And now you're all caught up. So obviously, a big chunk of Alien Force is the hybrid invasion arc, and I think this is the peak of Ben 10. This arc showcases Ben's character at his best. The growth of him being able to do the right thing and be a great hero without Grandpa Max always being there to help him is amazing. In this arc, you can truly see how the wisdom of Max has truly influenced Ben's personality. And throughout the arc, when Ben has doubts about being able to handle a situation without Max, Max and Gwen reassure him that he's capable of handling any situation and that he's not alone. This arc also introduced us to a bunch of new aliens and cool characters, like the Plumber's Kids, Julie, Chip, and even Agent Labyrinth, who for me personally made a good first impression regardless of his screen time. It also introduced us to major iconic Ben 10 villains like Albedo, Darkstar, and the Incursions. Even the episodes that weren't involved directly in the story of the arc were pretty cool, like the Verdana episode or the Alien X-One. The main villains of the arc being the hybrid and DNA aliens served as very interesting main villains for me. Also, real quick, I wanted to point out how up until the second season, I didn't know there were actually multiple different hybrids. I thought we were just seeing the same one over and over. So yeah, I'm pretty dumb. But to sum it up, this arc was truly an amazing watch and will probably be one of my favorites in all of Ben 10 once I'm completely familiarized with the franchise. And now, Season 3. So Season 3 is a little more polarizing to the community, mainly because Ben's massive change in character. In this season, Ben is a lot more overconfident and less serious. Also, this season, unlike the first two, didn't have a massive arc throughout it, so the plot of the episodes were far more loose than the first two seasons. All that being said, I still think it was really good. First off, to tackle the Ben situation, I had already learned that Ben goes through a massive personality swap this season, and honestly, I thought it was going to be a whole lot worse. But honestly, Ben's character isn't really that bad here. I think in the season opener when Vilgax returns was Ben at his worst. He was very annoying in those first two episodes, but after that, he really wasn't that bad to me. He was still pretty mature. The only sort of problem I had with him was him not taking accountability for causing Kevin to mutate, which he eventually does, but literally in the last episode of the season. Speaking of Kevin's mutation, it serves as the only real arc in the season, and I really like it. One thing I really like about Alien Force as a whole is that it's not just Ben focused. Gwen and Kevin get their own focus too. In this arc with Kevin hating the mutation the Omnitrix gave him was a great showcase of his character and his development, especially compared to his younger self who loved being a monster. A lot of good one-off episodes in the season and a really cool lore dumps just like the first two. And I must say that finale was very good and a perfect way to transition to Ultimate Alien. Now I'm going to talk about the characters, starting with the baddest kid to ever save the day, Ben. So Ben from Classic to AF had a massive character change, which makes a lot of sense since it was a 5-year time skip. Ben is much more mature, which I really like. They do a good job showing the influence Grandpa Max has on him. He's way sharper now, being able to make plans to get out of situations that seem impossible. And he is much more compassionate, which is highlighted when he does things like caring for Heidi, convincing the dragon to not wreak havoc on the Forever Knights, and even leave Earth to stop a war only because a little girl sent him a message. Even in Season 3, where his character went through another big change. In this season, there were times when Ben's character was very overconfident, but also in a good bit of those moments, he could always back it up. And that shows Ben's level of competence, which is a trait that I love, especially in Omniverse, where Ben is much more seasoned. And overall, his character in this season isn't that bad. It's just to go from seasons 1 and 2 Ben to season 3 is a very awkward leap. But overall, I really enjoyed the older and mature Ben in this show. Next, we have the strongest character in the show by far, Gwen Tennyson. But in all seriousness, Gwen is freaking broken. Making shields this strong, being able to track people only by their DNA, casting time spells, bro. In the Classic series, Gwen already felt dang near broken given that she was smart and knew karate. But now that she's developed her powers much more, she's literally a cheat code. Just absorbing her power alone is enough to fully restore Dark Star. That's insane to think. We always power scale Ben, why don't we power scale Lucky Girl? But character-wise, Gwen grew to be exactly how I thought she would be. Having the same role model of Max while already being more mature than Ben. She often serves the role as the more logical one and the voice of reason, especially when Ben's head isn't straight. She genuinely might be my favorite, being super smart and great at martial arts, two character archetypes I really like. Having her own interesting abilities, lore, and villains make her just as cool as Ben, if not cooler. And with her not stirring up any problems or trouble, it's just very hard to dislike her. I love her and Ben's dynamic, being as close as siblings and always backing each other up, because it feels so organic given what they've been through together. And her relationship with Kevin is very sweet and fun to watch. Speaking of the delinquent, we got Kevin Levin. Where do I even start? Amazing character growth from Classic and probably the best of the trio. I love the significance of his dad to him, being his role model and the main reason why he wants to change his ways. It's cool to think that Kevin grew to have a change of heart after being in the Null Void for so long. Also, this man is shrouded in mystery, not knowing much about him and his background until progressing through the show. Kevin's lore is probably one of the most interesting and intriguing things about Ben 10. Every time I learn something about him, I just end up having more questions. My main one right now being, if Max was partners with Kevin's dad, how come he didn't recognize who he was when the Tennysons first met him? He saw his mutation powers. I'm sure if Max knew him, he would have offered Kevin a chance to live with them, since at the time he seemed like a stray kid. Speaking of which, he had a mom the whole time. Where has she been? She opens up a list of questions by herself. But Kevin's character overall is great. I especially love his new powers in his story arc in season 3. He's definitely the funniest character in the show, having a non-care attitude and always siding with Gwen. His dynamic with Ben is pretty cool, with them serving as best friends, sometimes brothers. But that's it for the main trio. I think the show does a great job of making them all feel very important and each have their own interesting stories, powers, and lore, which is something some shows don't really do. So for a show to be named after one guy giving the whole group love like this is great. Reading through other characters, we have Max, who doesn't really change much from Classic to AF, but that's not really needed since he's the main reason why Ben and Gwen are the way they are. He's still just as cool and a great leader, leading the Plumbers Kids into action. The Plumbers Kids are a fun little group that I'm glad they put in the show. They're this group of kids who had a human and alien parent, giving them alien physique and powers. I like that each serves a role. Alan being the heart of the group, Manny being the straight to action tough guy, Helen being the tech wizard, and Pierce being a very decent leader, listening to Max teachings more than the rest. I like their family dynamic a lot, especially the one between Manny and Helen, since seeing how close they are in their introduction episode. I think they're a pretty good group and serve well for representing the OG aliens since Ben barely uses any of them. Alan and Helen being my favorites, mainly because of their species. And finally, Julie Yamamoto, high-level tennis player and Ben's girlfriend. I think she's really cool and I like her design. And I already know her and Ben's fate. 1, because I've seen Omniverse. 2, the film has made it very clear that they do not have the best relationship in Ultimate Alien. But as of right now, I like them. I do sort of wish we got to see them together more, especially knowing what's about to happen. But the Ben 10 franchise has never been really too good at writing romance, so it is what it is. But she's pretty dope. I like chill characters and Julie definitely fits that. And I like that a very powerful pet and ship is hers. I think it's cool and very funny that Julie of all people owns something so strong and versatile in the Ben 10 verse. She just looks so gassed in the show whenever she fights with them. But that wraps up all the main characters. I think all of them are pretty dope, and they all serve a big part of the entire franchise, which I think is really hard to do with such a side cast. Even Argent. But who's just as impactful as the heroes of Alien Force? That's right, duh. So next I gotta talk about the villains. The villains of this series serve a very important purpose throughout the story, especially in seasons 1 and 2. And in this section, I'm only gonna talk about recurring villains. So going from least iconic to most iconic, we got the Vito brothers. Now these guys are very familiar from Omniverse, and well, they don't seem all that different here. Still the same, I don't have much of an opinion on them. I think they're good villain of the weeks, because sometimes you need lighthearted villains to balance out the serious ones. I will say that it's very funny to me that Octagon is a low-key smart guy and very tech knowledgeable. Since the Vito's supposed to be pretty dumb, the way he talks is very funny, especially with his accent. Then next we got Volcanus. Once again, another dude I don't really have strong feelings on. He's alright, but the fact that he's just a little guy is hilarious. I do get enjoyment from him though, because he's always conveniently fighting an alien I really like. He gives aliens like Big Chill, Spider Monkey, and Ralph pretty cool scenes. So whenever he's on screen, I always get a good moment with him and Ben fighting, but nothing specifically from him. Next up is Mike Morningstar, or Darkstar if you will. So about Mike. He's got to be my favorite villain in the show. I don't really remember much about him from Omniverse, but he does have that one cool moment with Ghost Freak. Well, cool for Ghost Freak, not for him.
Stop hitting yourself! Why are you hitting yourself?
But I gotta say, I really like his character. He's a rich plumber's kid who's evil only of his own volition. Like, after his face messes up, he has a valid reason, but before that, he just did it just cuz. I think his powers are cool too, even though it's nothing super out of the box. I also think it's hilarious he absorbs the life energy of teenage girls specifically. Like, bro, you got rejected once. The way he talks is intriguing too, the more preppy, well-mannered accent and vocabulary. His fit and mask is tough too, being a Dr. Doom reference, who's not only a top-tier villain on his own, but being an MF Doom fan makes the mask just hold so much weight. But yeah, I really think his design fits his character well. I also like that he teamed up with the good guys to save the Earth, showing that he isn't just some dumb and heartless villain. He mainly just wants to restore his health. I also really like that he's primarily a Gwen villain, dwelling mainly on the magical side of the story. Next is Albedo. Now I think Albedo is a pretty cool villain. I think he's a good example of how to do a dark version of a main hero right. Albedo originally turned into a Ben clone for making his own Omnitrix copy because he believed he would be a better wielder of the Omnitrix. Kind of like Metal Sonic, dark versions of characters always hit harder when they have a deeper connection to the main hero, rather than just being an evil clone. I also love his motives and his lore, as he really just wants his original body back, and his backstory of him being Asmo's assistant. Also, thank you for introducing Ultimates into the show. Next is Vilgax, and yeah, he's the most iconic villain in Ben 10, but not in Alien Force, so yeah. Now, if there is one villain I remember in Omniverse, it's definitely Vilgax, where bro is just a joke. Like, he's barely even taken serious. Now, some people see that as a fault of Omniverse, but I'm gonna be honest, I see some of that developing here. Not that Vilgax isn't being taken seriously, but he's showing up a bit too much. Now don't get me wrong, I enjoyed all the episodes Vilgax was in, but to be in only one season, Vilgax shows up 5 times, technically being in 7 episodes, all in one season. What made Vilgax such a big deal in Classic is that he only showed up for really big moments. Heck, it took Vilgax a whole season to show up in season 1 when he was teased in the first episode. But to the more traditional superhero cartoon nature of Alien Force, he's far more present, so he naturally loses far more. Now overall, I still like him. Nothing's ever gonna beat that classic design and voice, but he's still pretty cool here. And the buff was fire too, conquering multiple planets' strongest hero and taking their power. He also kinda like killed the Galactic Enforcers. Like, are they okay? You really get to see the way he has on the universe more in Alien Force, which I do very much appreciate. And last but most definitely not least, we have the Hybrid. Their backstory and motive is really interesting and very well written. But outside of their role and possibly the best written Ben 10 arc, I don't really have any strong feelings about them. I think they're an amazing part of the lore and universe of Ben 10, but whenever I see them, I'm just reminded about how peak the arc was. Rainy's the only one that really makes a lasting impression. But that wraps up the villains. I think overall they're pretty good, some being my favorites in the franchise and some just being alright, but overall they were a good bunch. I'm very excited for Ultimate Alien because their villains get a whole lot more talk amongst the community. Now, on to the next segment. Real quick, I'm gonna talk shortly about the aliens on the show. One, because I've already been introduced to all already in Omniverse, but mainly because I plan to do more Ben 10 content in the future, so you'll probably get my full thoughts on them later. First off, let me just say that the recalibrated Omnitrix is probably my new favorite. It's still between this and the Omniverse one, but this is simple while having that alien tech charm to it. I'm gonna just get this out of the way so y'all can get used to it. Big Chill and Spider Monkey are some of my favorite aliens in Ben 10, especially Big Chill. I have a top 3 that consists of Accelerate, Feedback, and Big Chill, and these 3 stand at the top of the list dominantly. He's just so cool, pun intended. And honestly, I don't think I need to say much more. Alien Force definitely does him justice. And Spider Monkey has always been a personal favorite of mine, although I don't necessarily know why. Spider Monkey is just cool, super agile, and has a good bit of strength to him. He's kind of like Spider-Man in a sense, who is my favorite superhero, but that isn't necessarily why I like him. On top of his powers, his design and voice are really cool. I guess I just have a weakness for the blue-black color scheme in Ben 10, but the rest of the aliens I think are very cool. They all kind of grew on me since I've finally seen the show where they get most of their screen time, but the ones who grew on me the most are Chroma Stone, Brainstorm, Goop, Jet Ray, and Lodestar. Once again, I will go more into depth on my feelings on all of Ben's aliens at some point, but every single one in Alien Force is cool to me, so I'll give you that. One major impressive thing about Alien Force is that to me, it doesn't have a single bad episode. I'm a very simple man, so as long as an episode has a decent plot behind it and isn't completely boring, I won't have a problem with it. There's a bunch of really banger episodes in this show, but so I don't yap too long, I'm going to talk about my favorite 10. Because duh. So starting out with the first season, we have episode 5, Max Out. Not only are Ben and Gwen very serious here, but we get to see them reunite with Grandpa Max. And his sacrifice and speech to Ben was fire. We also found out that Ben could cure people with the Omnitrix. Oh, and Gwen has a brother named Ken. Yeah, he exists. Next is episode 8, What Are Little Girls Made Of? In this episode, we not only get to find out who Ben and Gwen's grandmother is. Max really can't stay off those alien baddies. Like grandfather, like grandson, I guess. But we also get the origin of Gwen's magical abilities, which explains why Gwen is so broken, because the Anodites are extremely OP, with a good amount of emotion and somewhat family bonding, and also my boy Spider Monkey's debut. And for the last episode of season 1, we have episode 10, Paradox. Just a very cool concept that not only brought back time travel into Ben 10, but also debuted one of the coolest and most mysterious characters in the franchise's history, Professor Paradox. I also like the fact that Ben figured out how to stop the time beast before Paradox could. Just shows how smart he is now. Moving on to season 2, we have episode 2, Alone Together. I will admit, when I first watched this episode, it was more of a sleepy experience, but looking back on the significance it had towards the end of the Hybrid arc, it's just amazing. It perfectly encapsulates what Ben stands for, being a person who cares for all races and species. He could have easily left Rainey on his own with Jet Ray or something. Next is episode 4, Save the Last Dance. In a show with this dark of a tone, it's nice to see a more laid-back episode where we get to see the gang and Julie chill out. Kevin's side plot is hilarious here. Him asking Ben for advice just shows their brother-like bond. And it's also nice to see Julie be a very supportive girlfriend. Man, I don't want to see them fall apart. And the ending I really like because it just shows how each individual transformation and race in Ben 10 has their own personalities and qualities. And let's be real, a whole episode dedicated to my GOAT is gonna be one of my favorites. Also, the idea of Ben being a mom is hilarious. Episode 8, Voided. Another episode that shows off the dynamic between Max and Ben very well. Max telling Ben how much he trusts him to handle things on Earth. It was also very nice to see the plumber's kids again. Animo being the Void is something I find very funny, but kinda like. I just wish he held a little bit more weight than one episode, but it's not the biggest issue. Also, my GOAT has another cool appearance here. In closing off season 2, we have episode 12 and 13, The War of the Worlds, the two-parter. I'm counting this as one because it's my video, and really, what is there to say? Everyone uniting to protect Earth, even Darkstar and Paradox was crazy. Ben unlocking his classic aliens and Ben's relationship with Asphodel being developed further. Also, the arc ending with Ben simply curing the hybrid rather than an all-out battle was something that shocked me, but I really love. Ending things off with season 3, we have episode 14, Primus. A crazy lore dump for the Omnitrix, which has such a cool concept to me. The episode also gave Ben and Asphodel more really good moments, and makes Ben look so cool when outsmarting Vilgax. After that is episode 16, The Secret of Chroma Stone. Once again, specific aliens getting their own dedicated episode will always hit. Seeing Tetrax again was also pretty cool. And this episode gave him, Diamond Head, Chroma Stone, and all Crystal Sapiens insane lore. And really, analysis aside, this is just a pretty dope episode. Chroma Stone is super cool. And last but not least, we have episode 17, Above and Beyond. I talked earlier about how much I really like the Plumber's Kids, and this episode was a big reason why. I love hero teams, and seeing them work together to prevail through a situation like that was fire. I liked how they all got picked off one by one to emphasize that they need to work together. But I swear Ben must have some personal vendetta against Helen and Manny, because the way he did them was nasty. Especially Manny, because I'm sure Helen felt terrible, but he made sure to give Manny a brutal beatdown. Like, this almost convinced me that Ben wasn't really evil. Bro did not forget that they tried to send him to the Null Void. Like, I knew this was a test, but they surely made it convincing for him. Also, I love that they got promoted to officially be plumbers in training, which I love the plumbers and all, but if you're able to get a win over Ben Tennyson, how much training do you really need? And you know what? I'm adding another one. Episode 18, Vendetta. I know, I broke my own rules. This episode is fire because it tells us about Kevin's dad, Max being his partner, revealing he also has Kevin's powers and how he died. I also think it was genius to make Kevin the one to solve this problem on his own, since this is mainly his beef and score to settle. And it's cool to think that he single-handedly saved the solar system. That's crazy. Ragnarok was also an interesting villain. He had a really cool design that was very powerful. I sort of wish he didn't die because it would give Kevin his very own villain like Ben and Gwen. But that's 11 of some of my favorite episodes. Like I said earlier, Alien Force has so many good episodes that I didn't get to talk about. Like the show's 2-part debut, the Plumber Kids episodes, the Dark Star episodes, or the show's final 2-parter. Maybe in the future I'll get into each one in more detail. But that about wraps this section up. So my final thoughts. Overall, Ben 10 Alien Force is an amazing show. Its mature themes, great action, and cool characters shows why it's so iconic still to this day, almost 20 years later. I honestly think it doesn't have a single weak episode, and even changes like Ben's personality I think are done very well, that it doesn't hinder the show at all for me. Oddly though, after all this praise, I would still rank it under Classic and Omniverse personally. I think that goes to show how good the Ben 10 franchise is as a whole. The other shows fit the style of cartoon I like most, which is more goofy mixed with coolness. But of course, that takes nothing away from how great this show is. I do still love this mature and dark vibe of Ben 10, so I'm definitely excited for Ultimate Alien. I've heard a fair amount of criticism, but also a lot of really good things about the show. One thing I can already say that I like about it is that Ben is a well-known hero in it. I feel like Ben being famous on Earth is something that fits Ben 10 more than holding a secret identity. I'm also very excited to watch arcs like the Akagor arc, Ultimate Kevin arc, and the Dagon arc, since they get a lot of talk amongst the fandom. So definitely be expecting a Ben 10 Ultimate Alien review at some point. But I'll see you all next time. I hope you enjoyed your holidays, have an amazing week, and remember, real stars fight through the dark. Later.
But he survived worse.
He could come back.
If he ever does, it's hero time.